Welcome back to the Nebraska Football Show. I'm Tim Verghese, joined as always by Steve Marik. Steve, weekend in USC, weekend out west. Nebraska came back with a loss, but overall, I mean, again, you and me, it's not far off from what our predictions were for how that game was going to go. Probably going to come down to one last score, go to come down to a one score game. And that's kind of what we saw. The first game of the Dana Holgorsen experience. I guess for you, where's your head at a couple of days removed from that game? Because I know some people, at this point it's like, hey, is that sixth win going to come? But at least for me personally, I thought there was some solid growth to take away from that game.
Yeah, I thought there were some good things to see, and then obviously going into it, out in the back of my head, I was always like, okay, he just got here 2 weeks ago. Let's like temper down the expectations about like how drastic of different things that we're gonna see out there. But I did see like a few wrinkles is a name that's been, or wrinkles is a word that's been thrown out there, and I did see some wrinkles with the offense, I guess, like the tempo I thought was kind of good to see. Sometimes they went fast, sometimes they took their time, and I know that messes with defenses. Other things like having Dylan get the ball out of his hands just quicker, like than he did earlier in the season. I think that is helpful, especially for him because he's clearly fighting confidence issues right now, and he's not at the comfort level that I think he wants to be out there. So that was good. Just calling concepts that have him go one read, two read, and like make a decision. And so I think that's kind of something that benefits somebody like Dylan Riley right now. And then obviously like the core air raid concepts that we talked about, Tim. Like we saw mesh, we saw stick, we saw four verts. Which by the way, um, that last, the second to last play, that went to, it was Dylan Raiola's completion to Jalen Lloyd on a 3rd and 10 with like 5 seconds left in the game. That came off of a four vertical concept, and Jalen Lloyd just went up and grabbed it like a cat. And I think that guy needs to maybe get more opportunities out there, with
Yeah,
more targets thrown his way against Wisconsin and Iowa. What say you?
yeah. I mean, it's just good to see him make that type of play, like go outside of his
Yeah.
frame and could go up and get it, hold on through contact. Like, yeah, it's been weird the lack of Lloyd at times this year, and I'm hoping
Mm-hmm.
we do get to see a little more of him. Dana seems to like Janer and Bonner as well. I thought we saw some good stuff out of him. Again,
Yeah.
like I do have a question about the usage of some of it, and again, some of the sequencing. Like I thought it was better overall from Jana this game. But yeah, even this game, there were times where I was like, okay, the run game's working. Why'd we start the
Mm-hmm.
drive, or why they start the drive three straight passes? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's certain things where I think it's still obviously a work in progress, but you can see the general improvement. Like, I mean, I wrote it in my grades, but like it felt from the jump that Dylan felt a little more comfortable. It was about as comfortable as we'd seen him look in a couple games early
Mm.
on Saturday, and then he kind of started to slip and fall back into some quote unquote old habits, and or bad habits, I guess. And we saw a little bit of regression, but overall, I think again, and more than anything, I do believe week two within the system would probably look better than week one did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they had to be in such a tough situation. The first game, new play caller, you're adding some things here and there like in 2 weeks. I mean, it was never going to be, this kind of offensive show that maybe some people were expecting. I mean, that was never going to happen. But so yeah, I mean, I expected them to lose by one score. They lost by one score. Tim, I think you did the same. So, it wasn't a terribly surprising game, from that standpoint. But like you said, I liked some of the new things that we saw. Some more like in breaking routes from Banks and Air. I love that. If it's not just a straight up slant, maybe just like a glance towards the middle of the field. Like I think that is something that Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair can build off of for these final two games, of just like kind of always having that be there, and having Dylan know that those easy completions are going to be there too, which again, like we said in the beginning here, gets the ball out of his hands quickly. And we didn't really see a lot of that early in the season. There was a lot of like long progressions, and sometimes he had the protection, like Dylan had the protection early in the year. I remember doing some of these podcasts, and we, after the game, we would rewatch it and be like, man, Dylan had like all sorts of time to throw back there. Obviously, that has changed as the competition has ramped up and the defenses have gotten better. But yeah, there's just some things here and there that I really liked, and I totally agree with you. They did get the run game going. A lot of those inside split zone runs did you know generate yards and generate first downs. But they didn't really like do it or try it or do it like consistently. So that's something that I'm wondering about too.
Yeah, for me with the run game, more than the success of it, I did think they found it complements each other now. Like it used to be where it felt like, hey, the run plays feel completely different than the pass plays, and it feels sequenced differently. It feels like it's schemed differently and everything, and now it feels like, hey, it all complements each other. Like he'll drop back and it'll build off each other. You build you're working formations together, and I thought they did a good job of, and I think Dana's going to help with that too, of just keeping defenses on their toes in terms of what to expect. Yeah, but I did think they started to find something in the run game. I thought the usage of the tight ends, how many of them were used, was interesting. I
Lindenmeyer.
think want to see a little
Hmm.
more volume. And again, like
Hmm.
where's Carter Nelson? Like I do wonder about that too. It's like, hey, you're looking for guys that can win one-on-one matchups. He's a guy that can win you one-on-one matchups, and I understand, he's taking some time to adjust, but they've burnt his red shirt already. He's playing special team snaps. He's still traveling to these games. It's just strange that we're not seeing him on the field, considering how much they use him on special teams at this point.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is there. I know everybody knows. I mean, Carter Nelson's story. I mean, he had a lot of work to do coming from eight-man football and in the areas of other than winning one-on-ones like and running routes. He never really blocked in his high school career, which is understandable considering where he's come from and what he was asked to do there, what he needed to do there for his team to win football games. But yeah, I don't know. At this point, would you rather have, you ask yourself, like you see Janarin Bonner taking those screens and doing something with it, if you insert Carter Nelson in that same role where he's getting a tight end screen, like how much different is it? Like what does he do differently that Janarin Bonner doesn't? So those are the things you kind of weigh. Like I can see a world where Carter, does better in those areas, but I also see a world where Janarin Bonner, like it's a good fit for him to get involved too, with everything that he brings to the table as a blocker as well.
Right, right. And so, yeah, I mean, again, I think for him, it's I get it. Like, you're kind of playing the long game with him and Dylan and these guys about playing for the next year, the year after, kind of in a way. And I do think that context is important when we're talking about the season. Is remembering that at every place, it's always been about year three with Rule. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that start like it gets annoying and frustrating, and it's gonna sound like excuses, but I mean, go look at what year two at every other program look like. They have to win that sixth game, I believe. But in my opinion, I do think you have to show that type of improvement. But for the most part, I think we've seen the growing pains of trying to build, what they want to build in the Big Ten, and the adjustments of having a freshman quarterback that, hey, in the long run, if he sticks it out, like this is going to be better for him. Like taking these lumps now, he'll be better for it. And some of the young guys that are playing or getting valuable reps in practice are, again, it'll benefit them in the long run. But it's not been about this year, and so I do. There's a part of me that I'm like, I don't understand people getting work. I get like as a fan, you're frustrated. It's been, a decade plus
Mm-hmm.
of this, and I understand that, but at the same time, this is a program that everything is in front of them, and again, the goals of this season are not off the table. Like to be like, okay, I'm quitting. I'm done. Uh this isn't what I signed up for. I mean, when you hired Matt Rule, this is exactly what you signed up for. Like year two was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to look like this. Just because year one looked better, I don't think you should have expected year two to look significantly better. There is improvement, but yeah, I mean, again,
Mm-hmm.
it's a team that's still kind of growing and finding their ways. And again, there were opportunities potentially for this team to be quote unquote ahead of schedule. They just didn't take those, and that is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I totally understand the frustration of the fan base, and everything. And it's not like the people inside of the football program are, thinking that the job is done and they see growth right now, so it's all rainbows and sunshine and stuff. But they want to win one more game too. I mean, it's got to be brutal for guys like Ty Robinson, who are going out there balling out, and he doesn't have a bowl game to show for it. I mean, that guy really wants a bowl game, so it's going to be something to pay attention to, just how they react to the adversity and everything. And totally agree, Tim. It was always going to be maybe like an up down season. When you thought about how this was going to go in the preseason, because you knew you were going to be starting a true freshman quarterback, and I know the hype was through the roof with Dylan, but obviously we're seeing the effects of just putting a lot on his shoulders, earlier in the season before the change at OC, and he hasn't done very well in it. So there has just been a lot of pressure around him, and the guys surrounding him haven't been as good as they need to be if you're rolling with a first time true freshman starter at quarterback. So yeah, I mean it's still 2 games left. I'm optimistic actually. I know that might sound crazy right now, but I'm optimistic that I can see Nebraska winning one of these 2 games for sure. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, you go back and look at USC, like the
Yeah.
I had this predicted as a loss because again, this is a team that no matter how with a job Nebraska did defensively, they had multiple athletes out wide that can beat you one on one. There are very few
Mhm.
programs Nebraska plays this year that have multiple guys like that. Ohio State, Colorado, and USC are pretty much the three where they have guys out wide and guys in the backfield that can beat you one on one.
Mhm.
And that's what it came down to. Again, we can before we get into Wisconsin, I think it's important to talk defensively, just some of the lapses and the way the back end of that defense specifically is. Like, they didn't fit the run well. That's a
Yeah,
given. Um,
that counter run was like going wild for
and
like
Lincoln
an
runs
early.
counter better than anybody. Like Lincoln runs
Yeah,
counter
that's
as well
his
as
thing.
anybody. Like that's
It's his
his thing.
thing.
It's his
Hmm.
thing. And so I thought they did a good job of hammering that against a Nebraska front that couldn't, or a Nebraska defense that couldn't fit it. And it's not on, like, at least for my I don't know if you saw this on rewatch, Steve, but watching it live and watching it back, it felt like it was more so poor fits from the second and third level than anything from the front. Because I thought the front, they asked him to stunt a lot. They asked him to do a couple
Hmm.
different things. You are playing with limited bodies up there. But I thought at the second and third level, I didn't think the linebackers or safeties above did the best job fitting those counters.
The defensive line is asked to stunt a lot, and at times I thought that it just like took them out of their run fit almost immediately, just because there's so much movement, and USC is running what they run. They're running that gap scheme right at you, and when you're moving bodies on the defensive line like Tony White asks his guys to do, sometimes you're out of position just by nature of the stunt. So I thought that happened at times. But also, you're right. I mean, it's not just solely on. It's kind of the disappointing thing with the fan base. It's like you mentioned Ty Robinson and all the good things that he's doing, and then somebody in the comments says, "Hey, USC just ran the ball right down our throats. Like he's not good. Like blah blah blah." It's like, well, it's more than Ty Robinson's job up there. It's more than the defensive line's job. Like fitting a run is about the second and third levels too. It's a whole like everybody on defense. It's their job to
It's eight,
stop it
nine
and
plus
do their
guys. Every
jobs.
like fitting the
Yeah.
run is about
Yes.
8, 9 guys doing their job.
Yeah. So when I hear like, negative talk about Ty Robinson, like I sent you a text, Tim, when I was rewatching the game. It's like, man, Ty Robinson has been really, really good this year. Like he has taken that next step that next step that other guys next year could watch right now and be like, I'm going to do that next year. I'm going to take that. Jamari Butler, he's watching Ty Robinson right now. Ty Robinson is going to be drafted pretty high in the NFL draft, in my opinion. Jamari Butler could be watching him right now and be like, yeah, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to take that next step and be next year's Ty Robinson. So I think Ty Robinson has been playing great. And it's not just one guy's fault that the counter run, that USC was just rolling with, was working and being so successful. It's a whole defense. It's their whole job. Everybody needs to do their job, and they weren't doing it on Saturday, especially in that against that gap scheme run.
For sure. And I think a bigger question and a bigger talking point with the defense at this point, and you and I have touched on this at times this year, and we are where we are at this point. I mean, there's just an athletic deficiency in the
You
back
really
end.
saw it in the defensive backfield. Yeah. Marquise Buford, Jashawn Singleton, Isaac Gifford, they played a lot of football for Nebraska. But I don't think that they had a very good day against USC in that passing offense. Matt Rule said as much on Monday during his weekly press conference. Yeah, I mean it's just and Tommy Hill, he doesn't look right out there. He doesn't look healthy at all. I have no idea what that tackle attempt on Zachariah Branch for USC's first touchdown was. No idea what he was doing. It looked just like he was playing flag football. No idea what's going on. So I can only assume that he's just not even close to 100%. And that's scary when, you still have him out there because you think he's at this point better than whoever is right behind him, whether that be Jeremiah Charles or whoever. But yeah, the USC's passing offense was just kind of getting so many chunk yards, and the Nebraska's defensive backfield was, you know, and the thing with that counter run, Tim, was once they got that thing going, you started like those play action fakes in the backfield. Every time there was one, you saw the second and third level guys kind of take a step or two toward the line of scrimmage, and then that's when the receivers were flying right by them. So it was just USC's got dudes. I know they don't have a very good record right now, but USC still has dudes, and they kind of showed out, and that kind of gives you a snapshot of what it looks like where, one side has really kind of elite athleticism and the other side is still trying to get there.
Yeah, and again, when Nebraska's defense has won, they've won as a unit. They've when they've
Mm-hmm.
played at an elite level, they've won as a unit. That's been the story of the last 2 years. Is a team that doesn't necessarily have that. Yes, has a couple NFL like last year. Quentin Newsom, Omar Brown went on to play in the NFL, and the farther we get from it, yeah, I mean, I saw people that were like, "Hey, man, we really missed Omar Brown." Omar Brown made the NFL. Like, I don't think people. I think people around here, for whatever reason, underestimate or what do I understate like how hard that is and what that says about the level of talent to even make it, to even be that. Like Nebraska hasn't had a guy guys make it very often recently, and Omar made it. Quentin Newsom made it, and those two guys. I mean, you're missing that. You're feeling the impact of what not having an NFL safety back there does. You're feeling the impact of what not having a Quentin Newsom out there on the other side does. Sierra Wright's played well. Tommy Hill at times has played well, but obviously that injuries lingered, and it's tough. And I do think the staff has recognized that there's an athletic deficiency, and that's why they've recruited the way they have at the position. But are you alarmed that some of the guys aren't ready? Some of the young guys, like what in moments like this, you can't sub in a young guy, or do you think there's an element? Because I heard, a couple other people around here talk about this too. Is there an element of Matt Rule kind of leaning on these veterans because they're veterans, because they have experience, to get them through some of these tough moments and dealing with some of the lumps because ultimately, the team is better for having guys like Isaac Gifford and Deshaun Singleton out there.
I don't think that the guys behind those veterans, whether it be Isaac Gifford or Marquise Buford or Deshaun Singleton, I don't believe that the guys behind them right now would do a better job than those core three guys back there are currently doing. And that's an experience thing because I mean, it's just the Big Ten. It's just the Big Ten, Tim. This league is filled with good coaches and veteran players. And, just tell me like who's going to do a better job than those guys out there right now at this point. I mean, it's hard to say for sure that they wouldn't do a better job because we just haven't seen it. They haven't really got a true shot at showing at what they do. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just think that the best thing for Nebraska's defense to do is ride with the old guys because they have played and they understand football and they know what Big Ten football is like, and they know about playing Wisconsin and they know about playing Iowa. If you throw out like Mario Buford at safety, he's not gonna. I just don't think it's gonna react well to that setting. I could be wrong because we haven't seen it yet. But I just or like Ramir Stewart at Rover. Is he going to do a better job than Isaac Gifford? I don't know. I'm inclined to maybe lean towards just the core veteran guys. What about you?
Yeah, same. And that's my thing. It's like, hey, like again, with the secondary, it kind of is what it is at this point because
Yeah.
it's about the offseason and the young guys that have the
Hmm.
athleticism to kind of stack up against the USCs and the Ohio States and the Colorados of the world are not ready yet from an
Mm-mm.
experience standpoint. You think about
No.
the best athletes they've brought in to address this: Jeremiah Charles, Braylon Prude, those kind of guys specifically with the defense. I mean, you got Larry Tarver, you have these athletes in there. Amari Sanders, like you have good players, and Sanders and Tarver have experience. But talking specifically to guys like Prude, guys like Jeremiah Charles, they haven't played a whole. They're football young. They haven't played a whole lot of ball, even at the high school
Mm-hmm.
level.
Yeah.
Where you can say, okay, these guys are ready. Even they have the athleticism, they're ready to be out there. And so, um,
And a
you
lot of
know,
it is I will add there's also like a size and a strength component to this as well because you are playing Wisconsin and Iowa. Say what you want about Wisconsin's offense. They're going to try to run the football. They have the sixth best rushing offense in the Big Ten right now. Tawee Walker is a dude, and he is coming right at Nebraska. So I'm just envisioning a defense with the young guys back there and getting a shot with starts, and I just don't see it going well. I don't see it going well because they're not big enough and they're not strong enough right now. The veterans are. And so that's why I think Nebraska needs to continue to roll for as much crap as everybody is talking outside of the program about like play the young guys, play the young guys. Well, it sounds good right now, but like come Saturday when Tawee Walker's getting the ball and they're running right at Nebraska's defense, I don't think that the young guys would react well to that. I think that you roll with the old
yeah,
guys
still
right now that
even
have
even
gotten
at this
you.
point, I still think you want Isaac Gifford as like the
Yeah.
guy at the back end of the defense than anyone else when you're
Mhm.
facing
I
a
still want
run
him in
heavy
the
team.
box against Wisconsin and Iowa. That's
Right,
what I'm trying to say. I
right, and
still
you
want
look
him
from
out
a
there. I
person.
know.
Right. And you look from a personnel standpoint, again, Nebraska wants to get to a place defensively where they have better athletes out there. But
Mhm.
personnel wise, what they're trotting out there is expected to counteract what most of what you see in the Big Ten. The USC type receivers, the Ohio State type receivers, the Colorado type receivers, those are exceptions. And those have challenged Nebraska. And Nebraska's trying to get to a point where, hey, we have the athleticism and physicality combos out in the secondary to counteract that. We have, Jeremiah Charles with Caleb Benning and Ramir Stewart over the top, or we've got Jeremiah Jones back there. We've got guys that
Mhm.
are athletes that can play in the back end as well. And they're getting to that point, but it is a process, and it's one of those things that some of those guys just aren't ready right now. There's no way
No.
you play some of those guys over what you
Mm-mm.
have out there, and this is just what you have to deal with. And for the most part, like you said, I trust this group, this secondary right now for the next two matchups. I
Yeah.
bet on them over
It's more
anybody
their
else in that
game.
room.
It's more
Yeah,
their style of game. These last two,
exactly,
like USC was not their style of
for
game.
sure.
Wisconsin and Iowa guys are teams that are going to run the football on you. Though this is where the real football starts with these guys. I think this fits more of what they do well.
For sure. And I think with Rule and this staff, I think one element of this you have to give them a little patience with. And I understand that's frustrating here and hard to deal with, but
Yeah.
one element you have to give them patience with is the development. Is like Rule takes pride in being able to develop guys over 2, 3, 4 years and having
Mm-hmm.
them be ready. Some of the best products he had at Baylor were guys he didn't even really get to coach.
Jalen Petrie.
Jalen Petrie and those kind of guys in the back end, Terrell Bernard, like those guys, where he didn't really
Mm-hmm.
get a full career with those guys because their best football was played after he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And, for some of these young guys, it's like, hey, Jeremiah Charles might not be ready now, maybe not even ready
Mm-mm.
next year, but
Wasn't
it may
ready
be
against
like
UCLA.
yeah, it may be a thing of like, hey, it's year 4, Jeremiah Charles. Wow, look, like he's filling in for Sierra Wright that's now gone to play in the NFL or whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like that is not a far-fetched reality. And so I think it's important to give these guys time because you do see the flashes of some of the young guys. We saw Vincent Shavers flash a little bit on
Yeah.
Saturday. He had a nice little chase
Keona
down tackle.
Davis.
Yona Davis,
Keona
yeah,
Davis
like
is out
like
there hustling his butt off. Holy crap.
yeah, and you have to feel bullish about the future of the linebacker room. Again, like they have some they have to replace Ty Robinson and Ash. Like that's going to be a concern with the D
Yeah.
line moving forward. And then the secondary, it's again, they've got athletes back there, and you hear some of the murmurs and the buzz going into this transfer portal season. Nebraska's going to try and address that athleticism
Mm-hmm.
gap in the secondary. I think they're going to be aggressive in trying to do that because there needs to be a bit of a bridge. Like as much as they want to develop some of these young guys, there does need to be a bit of a bridge between when these young guys are ready and what is out there on the field because you do need some quality starters out there that can defend the run and defend the pass and
Defend the run
can
is the
match
big
up
thing.
athletically.
Yeah, the defending the run is the big thing because like I have no issues with believing that the young guys in Nebraska's defensive backs room can cover with the best of them. Like Amari Sanders, Larry Tarver, Jeremiah Charles. I think those guys are really good in pass coverage. But when I close my eyes and thinking about like having them out there for games against Wisconsin and Iowa, those types of games, they're going to have to do both. They're going to have to defend the run as well. And that's where I kind of get hesitant because, we've seen them at practice. They have not physically matured yet. They're a little bit on the smaller side, and I just don't get good vibes from them with like asking them to defend the run against Wisconsin and Iowa. So yeah, I totally agree that the transfer portal is going to be something that is going to be very, very important this offseason for that defensive backfield and finding safeties and maybe a corner to come in and do both in the Big Ten. Because if you're going to be a defensive back in the Big Ten, you got to do both. You got to tackle and cover.
For sure. On that note, kind of switching gears to Wisconsin and looking ahead, how do we feel about this matchup? This is one where, again, like it feels like Nebraska's got a good shot. Honestly, it feels like the USC game, somewhat all over again. Of like, what do we
There's news,
expect?
new
Yeah,
stuff going on. Nobody really knows what to expect because of the move of Phil Longo out as a offensive coordinator. And I think reports were that the tight ends coach Nate Letton might be Luke Fickell's pick about who is going to call the plays. Now Luke Fickell isn't exactly saying who's going to call the plays, which I think is kind of funny, but yeah, I feel good about this, Tim. The defense is going to be tough. Obviously, it's Wisconsin. Mike Tressel's defense it's going to be tough, but you know what? I just think that what Dana Holgorsen is asking Nebraska's players to do offensively is just going to get better with another week. Maybe we see some even new wrinkles. And we're going to see some polished things of what they're already doing at USC, like the mesh concept, the sticks, four verts. They're just going to get better at those things. And again, that run game, maybe we'll see a concerted effort to stick with it because man, there were some moments where it looked really good going right at USC's defense, and so maybe that's something to build on too. But well, Tim, what do you think about this game with Wisconsin?
yeah. I think Nebraska kind of recognizes their best opportunity to get bowl eligible, and I think you're going to see offensively they're throwing as much as they can at the wall and trying to get over that hump. I think this is an opportunity for Dana to kind of let things rip. Um, pin his ears back, so to speak, and
Mm-hmm.
really kind of dial it up. And then yeah, I mean defensively, again, this matchup kind of favors Nebraska a little better
Yeah.
in terms of what they do well. But you face another running back here, and another running game here that can really
Yeah.
can really gash you if you let him.
Tawee Walker, JUCO guy. He was a preferred walk-on at Oklahoma, but he deserved his scholarship, so he went looking for a scholarship, and Wisconsin gave him. And boy, he is good. I really like Tawee Walker. He's a big guy. He's like 5'9", 218 pounds, so he's one of those short fire hydrant type guys that nobody likes trying to tackle. When Ches Malusi left their team early in the season, he became a guy. Just yeah, this they're going to want to run the football on Nebraska because the quarterback situation again is not very good with Braden Locke, a Mississippi State transfer, and obviously with the new play caller, we don't know who it's going to be. So who the heck knows what that offense is going to look like? But I'm guessing that they're going to lean on what they know can be successful, and that's going to be that run game with Tyree Walker.
Yeah, for sure. I'm expecting a lot of run. I'm expecting like an old school Wisconsin type
Yep,
offense again. I'm expecting
exactly.
a lot of under center. I'm expecting a
Uh-huh.
lot of the last time I saw Wisconsin in person was when Jonathan Taylor was there. So that's what I'm expecting is something like that with Tawee Walker and some of those backs back there. Yeah, I mean like you're talking about the quarterbacks. I watched Braden Locke in high school and watching
Mm.
him now, and I'm just like this. He should
He's a
not be
Texas
playing in the
guy,
Big
right?
Ten. Like, yeah, all due respect, he should not be playing
Hmm.
in the Big Ten. And
Yep.
um, a talent. I think there's a world for him in D1 college football. I think ACC was a good fit for him. I thought like even Mississippi State within that offense. There's protections in there. There's good enough pass catchers, but it hasn't worked out this year. Obviously, it's not his fault. He's been thrown into action a little.
Yeah.
Uh, for Tyler
And
Van Dyke,
Mabry,
who's
yeah. Yeah, and Mabry Maytower isn't ready yet, and I know you probably know about him. He's a good
yeah, I
looking
was a big
cat.
Mabry guy coming out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's a
Yeah,
guy that has some potential if he can start to put it together, but is not ready yet, like you said, and
yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
um, but does give you that size element, I guess, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. But yeah, I'm interested to see kind of what we see from that offense. Again, they do have a couple guys out wide that can beat you in these one-on-one type settings.
Yeah.
Again,
Will
Vinny
Cohen.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Will Pauling,
Hmm.
who I think his status is up in the air. And then CJ Williams. I was a big CJ Williams guy coming out of high school, and I still think like he's a guy
Hmm.
that could potentially have an NFL future ahead of him just with some of the stuff he does well. He's a tough cover. He's a tough cover, like a big physical receiver that plays kind of a little bigger than he's listed at.
Yeah, and Wisconsin does have some size outside. But then also, I'm a Trek Kahuna fan. Do you remember him, Tim?
Yeah,
He's a true
yeah.
freshman. Yeah, I really love that guy. 5'10", 190 pounds. He's from Hawaii. Just a little shifty slot receiver. I really like Trek Kahuna. He's kind of my guy. But Will Pauling is going to be about Will Pauling. Matt Rule, I mean, last season, Will Pauling caught, I think it was 8 passes for 79 yards. A lot of them were option routes that Nebraska just had really a tough time covering. So that happened last year, and I'm assuming we're going to see something similar this season with some tweaks, of course. But Will Pauling is going to be one to watch offensively for Wisconsin, and how Nebraska's defensive backs do against him is going to be a pretty important part of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. He's the guy I think you put Sierra on at this point, right? Or I mean,
Yeah,
Sierra kind of just
yeah.
lines up, wherever.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm interested to see kind of what we see. All year we've seen the defense have bad performances and bounce back. I'm expecting somewhat of a bounce back performance from Tony White and his unit, even with some of the unknowns they expect.
Hmm.
Offensively, I mean, what do you? We talked about it a little bit, but you're the game two of Dana, a defense that can challenge you a little more than USC's did. What are you expecting to see?
I'm expecting to see the core concepts that they were playing against USC for the first time in a game again, but a more polished version. Like, I don't think we're going to continue to see like new things every like for these past 2 games. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're going to still see the consistent things that they did against USC again, but just in a more efficient, kind of form, because they've had another full week of practice to practice these things, whether it's mesh, stick, verts. I keep saying those 3 things. Those are the core concepts that Dana Holgorsen knows and loves, and we saw him against USC. I think we'll see him again against Wisconsin, but for the Huskers' sake, just a more efficient kind of, better at doing them thing. Because I think the way to go is to limit the playbook and limit what you're asking the guys to do, and go from there, instead of continuing to add new things and not really sharpening your skills on what got you there in the first place.
For sure, I'd say yeah, keep it simple, and I'd also expect a little more from the run game. I think they started to
Yeah,
find something with Emmett and Dante last week, and man, Emmett to his credit, man, he's running
shifty.
hard. He
Yeah,
is
he is.
finding as many positive yards as he can. He's trying to make the most of every run he's got. I with the weather expected on Saturday and the type of game that's going to be, I'd expect more Emmett Johnson. I'd expect more Dante Dowdell.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think this is a game Nebraska could have the opportunity to kind of lean on the run to set up the pass a little bit the way they want to hypothetically play, and find some offensive success that way. For you, to close on this point, I guess, how critical is it kind of getting this sixth win at this point?
Well, it's massive. It's massive because everybody outside of the program is just starving for some sort of success and some sort of semblance of a step forward in progress, and getting that sixth win and playing in a bowl season, which in turn gets all that young talent on the roster right now, all those extra practices, whether it's 15 or what. But it's just so valuable to make a bowl, because of what it means development wise, and practice wise for the young players on the team. So getting a sixth win would be absolutely massive, 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 massive. The program needs it. Matt Rule said the program needs it. To break through, you need to break through and make a bowl and get 6 wins, and maybe that will help shed some of the mental block that some of this team has right now.
For sure. No, I think it happens this week. I mean, I've kind of said it the last few weeks. It's been like, if they win one of these final three, it's going to be this one. But I have them winning. But again, the new offensive coordinator change definitely throws a wrinkle in this where we'll see what Nebraska gets. But they're getting
Have you ever
Wisconsin
heard
teams
of
that
him, Nick? Or have you ever heard of him, Tim?
no, I
Nate
have
Linton,
not.
that 10. Yeah, he was Fickle's tight ends coach at Cincinnati before he
Okay.
took the Wisconsin job. So he followed him to Madison and has just been a tight ends coach. But I don't know if he's called plays in a game at the college level yet, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know, and you know, you think back to what they were running at Cincinnati too, and again, more of a pro style scheme and more
Yeah.
of that, and so I'm expecting more of that too. Um, I guess last thing before we get out of here, again, like with this Wisconsin team does come in here a little beat up, like what that schedule coming into this game has not been easy for them.
No, not at all, because they're coming off a stretch. Penn State, Iowa, Oregon. They've lost all of those. They had a bye week in between Iowa and Oregon. Obviously, they played well against Oregon, only scored 13 points, though, but the defense held Oregon's offense to 16 points. So that might scare some Husker fans. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a Big Ten West RIP type game. RIP to the Big Ten West part. But yeah, it's just going to be a ground and pound line of scrimmage game like it always is between these two programs, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I'm again. That's fully what I'm expecting on Saturday. So, but that'll do
Mhm.
it for us here with the Nebraska Football Show. We'll be back next week for the final game of the season. Can't believe we're here.
Black Friday, Iowa.